Shadow Show.
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 Shadowing it.
I fear that I've made a couple of really terrible decisions. I see Billy limp in here after God Bless Football, and he looks a little bit tired. Stugotz looks a little bit tired, but I don't think either of them are as tired as I am. I have just landed on a red eye from California. I don't think I will ever do that again because I'm going to struggle through what it is that I'm doing today.
The red eye you're talking about.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I'm just really, I am hurting because this is not the way to do today's show. But there's another thing that I did that I think might have been an error that is also going to make today's show difficult to do, because usually Monday's show, Football Monday, super easy to do. You come in here, everybody's got a lot to talk about, and you got all the college football and you got all the pro football. But I'm at a music festival, and I am promising my wife at the music festival on Friday that I'm going to be present during Pearl Jam.
Right.
I'm not going to be distracted. I'm not going to be in my phone.
In the moment.
That's correct. I'm going to try to be there with her. And the story that I have to tell you about what happened that made that difficult makes me come in today in a way that I am not properly prepared at all to do today's show. I don't know that I've ever been quite this ill-prepared to do a show in our 20 years doing this, where I just don't have enough information about what has happened in sports, even though I've tried to catch up, tried to do research and whatnot, but I cannot analyze football correctly today. I'm going to need the help of the group to walk me through some of the things that happen in football because I was so actively avoiding trying to watch football.
You made a promise to your wife. I mean,
is she happy?
Yes, she's happy, but I'm not. I'm not happy because something has been eating at me all weekend that I'm dying to know that I do not know about football. Can you guys just tell me, without giving me any of the results, what was the most interesting thing to happen over the last 3 days in all of football? If you had to choose a single thing, the most interesting thing to have happened was what?
Alabama, Georgia for me.
Co-sign. That's one of the greatest games I've ever seen.
Yes.
Okay. Because I fear that what is going to happen today might leave me embarrassed. Okay?
You didn't watch the Packers-Vikings?
Oh.
I caught
Jordan Love, 389 yards and a loss.
Wow.
That was a big one. Career high, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But the 3 INTs, a little worrisome.
Cost him.
Well, I saw a lot of people talking about Brian Flores, that Brian Flores is now great again.
He's good.
He is good.
He's really good.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold's really good.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes had one of the worst sequences you'd ever see out of a starting quarterback.
4-0.
It was a disastrous sequence. More on that in a moment.
Yeah. You don't know about that?
I don't know about the disaster.
It was, I mean,
wow.
You could hypothetically put out a scenario and say, like, this is about as bad as a play could go. And I don't think you'd come up with what actually happened.
It's questionable decision-making. I'd rather watch Pearl Jam than Patrick Mahomes.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. Yeah. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Dress too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough when mans keep walking. Yeah. girls, let her tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
I have something shocking, Dan. I don't mean to cut you off before you've even started. That happened to me yesterday that I didn't realize happened, and I think it happened to me on more than one occasion. I got up and I paused Red Zone, and then I came back and I unpaused Red Zone, and I didn't realize until like 4:30 that I was watching Red Zone 30 minutes behind everyone else. So I'm having actual conversations with people about things that happened half an hour before, and they thought that I was crazy. And then I got to a point where I actually apologized to someone, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize. I thought it was 3:30, not 4:15. I'm so behind on what's happening right now."
Okay, this is funny. That's happened to me before.
But here's the thing: once I realized, I didn't even correct it. I'm like, we're committed. Like, we're going to ride this out because what difference does it make? In my world right now, this is where we are on Red Zone, and I don't have to catch up to everyone else so that I can just enjoy Red Zone at my pace.
There is something, though, about keeping up with things in the modern age that when you fall 30 minutes behind, you feel like you're forever behind. On very few things do we watch this way, that you have to watch it live so that you can interact with your community of people as it's happening, which brings me to why it is that I'm ill-prepared for today's show, Stugotz, because I'm not 30 minutes behind. Mm-hmm. I'm 3 days behind.
Oh,
and
wow.
And I feel lost at sea, like totally untethered from things. So this is what happened to me on Friday night. Valerie doesn't like football. She doesn't like that every time she's walking past the television, somebody is on the floor or being taken off the field, and then they just move on to the next thing. And she just doesn't like the violence of it. But she also doesn't understand why it is when we have to go somewhere and it's the 2-minute warning, and I'm like, just hold on a second, hon. We'll get out the door in a second. And those 2 minutes are football minutes. They take a long time. They're not actually 2 minutes.
Right. They're actually like 25 minutes in real time.
It's not quite that much.
It could be.
But so this is what I've promised her, okay? Because the last few years have been difficult for a number of different reasons. I have promised her that as soon as this Pearl Jam concert starts that I am at, that I will get out of my phone, okay? And I'm watching on my phone. I'm not watching television. I'm watching the University of Miami Virginia Tech game on the Gamecast, okay? So all I've got, I don't have video. I just have a screen. What are you making faces about?
How's that even possible?
What do you mean?
Like, how could you only watch it on Gamecast, but you can't watch it on your phone?
I was not watching on the ESPN app. I was not watching video. I was just watching the computer.
He could have watched it on his phone, Billy. He doesn't know how to.
So sports infidelity here. It's not cheating if,
right.
It's over the shirt.
Just watching dots.
Yeah, you're not. And I'm not watching the game. I'm just watching the game.
No,
You know what I mean?
she
It's
knew.
not cheating.
No, she knew. I'm in my phone. Okay, the concert's about to start in 12 minutes. Okay, and my phone is on. There are 18 seconds left in the game, so I'm turning to my wife and I'm saying, "This is gonna take not very long. This is gonna take a couple of minutes, but it's 18 seconds. Virginia Tech doesn't have any timeouts." Okay,
Right.
And what ends up happening now is my phone freezes at 3 seconds with Virginia Tech on the 30-yard line of the University of Miami.
Right.
And this 3 seconds, I'm looking at my phone, it takes all 12 minutes. And now Pearl Jam is on the stage, and I'm looking at my phone, and I'm like, is it because there are so many people here? Is my internet access screwed up? It's just stuck at 3 seconds. And I'm like, honey, this is not gonna last very much longer. This is not gonna take 12 minutes. And now Eddie Vedder's on stage, and it's still stuck at 3 seconds. And as I'm looking at the phone, the texts start coming in from my friends that are just saying, holy shit, I can't believe this, and WTF. And now I put the phone in my pocket because
Wow.
Pearl Jam has started.
Right.
And I sit here now with you, not knowing the result of the game.
Really?
Because,
Good for you, man. You made a promise. You stuck to it.
How was Pearl Jam?
great.
They start on time, I would imagine, right?
Right on time.
They, right at 6:04, whatever time they're supposed to start, they start, and then boom, off to dinner.
You would have been okay with a late start, though. I mean, that's what you wanted.
Yes.
If we're being honest.
Yes.
When do rock stars mature to the point that they're like, we're not going to keep you waiting 2 hours. We got to go because, like, I have to pee in my diaper or whatever. And they're like, we got to start right on time. Is it like 70? Like, at what point do you stop being divas and you're like, let's just get in there, cash a check, get out?
Eddie Vedder's 62, I think.
Oof.
He's a young 62, though.
The opposite.
Yeah. Billy, but at music festivals, you almost have to run on time. You can't be that late to it. Unless you're Liam Gallagher, who showed up like 45 minutes late, did 2 songs, and told me to go fuck myself.
Personally?
Just like the royal we.
In general.
Sting is 72 years old, and he was great. Unbelievably
Don't stand
great.
so close to him, though, you know what I mean?
So I tried all weekend.
Hey, man.
Gave it to
You
yourself?
gave it to yourself?
What?
You can't give yourself.
There, I found it.
You can't do that.
It was worthy, though.
My God, you're annoying with every breath you take.
Oh, no.
Well played.
Do you know how hard it was to avoid knowing all weekend the result of the University of Miami Virginia Tech game? Because I need you guys to explain it to me. I have no idea what happened at the end of the game. I have been sitting for 3 days on the curiosity of, I'm judging from Mike's general temperament that this ended up being a good result for UM, because I don't suspect that he would look the way that he did this morning if what I thought happened, because I assumed putting the phone in my pocket. I really did assume, oh my God, a disaster has happened. Mario Cristobal happened. Virginia Tech at the end of the game went all the way down the field, and 30 yards out with 3 seconds left, they somehow won the game.
Okay, so are you at the point where you want to be informed of what happened?
I do want to know what happened, but can you imagine my frustration over the course? Can you imagine?
You must have felt so lonely.
Can you imagine me?
Jesus.
No, that's good.
He had a better one.
He did.
We're overriding. You had better jokes that were
better
fed
one.
to you, and you went with the bad one.
Could have used a message in a bottle.
No.
That's still not it.
Oh,
I think he's afraid. I think he's afraid of the other one.
he is.
Yeah.
He is. And that's a layered joke, too.
Terrified of it.
No, just come on.
Just do it now.
Do the joke that we were feeding
just
you.
do it now.
So you came to the Susu studio with no information?
And then the joke is that, no, Stugotz, it's Phil Collins. You idiot. And then we just keep it moving.
Right.
Well, not every little thing you do is magic, Stugotz.
Right. But So Lonely was good. I mean, it was deserving.
No, it was not.
Mike said so himself.
No.
It was fine.
Sting was exceptional, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
I'm just floored that at 72 he could be that good.
I saw him play a show once with Shaggy. They had a collaborative album. And it was actually a pretty good album for what it was, and it was a fun show.
Mr. Lover.
You know, he's a veteran. He served in the Gulf War, Shaggy did. Desert Storm veteran.
Put it on the poll.
And his voice is not like that in real life.
I know.
Put it on the poll, Juju. Did you know that Shaggy was a veteran who served in the Gulf War? So tell me what happened, because I was expecting you guys to tell me that the University of Miami football game was more interesting than Alabama, Georgia.
That was an all-time game. We have the video here, but the long and short of it is Virginia Tech attempted a Hail Mary, was incomplete. Game over, Miami wins.
Let's move on.
Well, it's not a
Back
Hail
to
Mary.
business.
It's not a Hail Mary from the 30-yard line.
You know,
was a Hail
It
Mary.
was a Hail
Yeah,
Mary.
it
As you can
was.
see here, it goes into the end zone, incomplete. No issues were had, and Miami, pulls out a dub. It was fine.
Yep.
Nothing Nothing really to write home about.
Interception, maybe.
We've
Who
seen
knows?
this end to a game countless times. A ball gets thrown into the end zone and it's incomplete on a Hail Mary attempt. And, you give credit to Virginia Tech. They play like their season was on the line. It was
Light
a
show going
hard-fought
off.
victory for Miami.
Oh, Virginia Tech celebrating. What?
Why did it take? How long did all of this take? Did it take the 12 minutes
It
that I
did.
was waiting
Yeah.
for? Just so everyone's just sitting around waiting for review.
So-
Was there an announcement? Somebody just came out and said, "Okay, game over. That's an incomplete
So
pass."
we're showing video right now. You're seeing a lot of things. You're seeing a lot of bodies. The one thing that you're not seeing on this video is a Virginia Tech player come up with the ball and say, I have it. However, shortly thereafter, officials throw their hands up and call Virginia Tech touchdown. The call on the field was a Virginia Tech touchdown.
Ridiculous.
They called Virginia Tech touchdown on the field.
Right.
So, yeah, everyone's shitting bricks. And we go to the replay, and it's a mass of humanity. Honestly, it's probably overthought. There's 3 guys fighting over a bouncing ball. All 3 guys are out of bounds. This is not a play. There is a brief moment, if you take a still, where it looks like a Virginia Tech player has the ball in his hands, but the ball comes loose and it touches an out-of-bounds player, thus making it an out-of-bounds play. The ball is dead. It's pretty simple, really, when you think about it. There was a loose ball touched by a player out of bounds. That's incomplete. But everyone had problems. And notice, the main argument from a lot of folks isn't he caught the ball. It's there's not enough there to overturn the call on the field, which is, a standard inside the ACC that is questionable at best. But, yeah, Virginia Tech, I understand. That was a difficult loss and a difficult call to not go your way. That's a call that hasn't gone Miami's way in the past, last year specifically with the Georgia Tech game, where the call on the field was fumble, even though everyone saw Don Chaney's elbow down and it still stayed a fumble.
Oh, no. We're going back 2 years?
No, that was last year.
That wasn't a fumble either?
The Don Chaney one against Georgia Tech where Mario didn't kneel?
boy.
It was very clearly not a fumble. But
Careful. We're sliding out of your back to work character.
no, we're going back to work, though.
Okay.
College Game Day is going to Berkeley. And the Miami Hurricanes are going to be featured on the College Game Day game of the week for a 10:30 p.m. Eastern start. We're back to work.
I'm looking at the replay here, and I also don't see enough evidence to overturn that call. I don't know
You're right.
I don't know if they had other angles.
They did not. It took about 50 minutes. You watched the exact same 2 angles over and over again, and then you saw that they showed the ACC replay headquarters.
It's a ragtag bunch up there,
oh my
man.
God.
It's Al Riveron.
Yeah.
Al Riveron's out
2
of it.
people in there, and then you could see them scrambling, oh my gosh, what do we do here? They call over a manager who comes in out of nowhere, and they're just, the longer it took, the more you realize, ACC is going to make sure their ACC team remains undefeated here, and they're looking for anything they can find here because it took forever to come with that decision.
Again, a totally ridiculous notion, as Miami was undefeated last year when the Georgia Tech shit went all sideways. Look, if you want to argue there isn't enough to overturn the call on the field, which was an absurd call. You can watch that a million times. The one thing that you don't see in any of those replays is a Virginia Tech player catching the ball. That's the one thing that you don't see. So it just flatly wasn't a catch, but everyone just applies a standard of, but they called it incorrectly on the field, so I guess you have to keep it. He didn't catch the ball. The ball was bouncing everywhere, and it was being touched by guys that are out of bounds. It's a dead ball, game over. I understand why you're burned by that, especially if you're Virginia Tech, who played their tails off. That is every bit the team that they were supposed to be this season. They dominated Miami's offensive line, which is a little nicked up, but still dominated them. They were the better team on the night, but when in previous years, a loss is fine. The loss is fine Miami in that spot. And Miami was able to survive it. And you get all the benefits of losing a game without actually having the loss to your record, and you keep this thing going.
That ball was moving the entire time. To me, it looked like the referees were just guessing in that situation.
No, but the problem is the call on the field. I mean, it is. Whether Mike wants to acknowledge it or not, the call on the field was a touchdown. And you need, to reverse that is ridiculous.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I don't think it's ridiculous because, again, we watched replay. We didn't see a catch. I think you're right. The issue was a call on the field.
Yes.
I honestly, the story here is Miami almost got screwed by a terrible call on the field. In fact, at the end of that play, a Miami player comes up with the ball and is running off of it. You have more evidence that a Miami player caught that ball than a Virginia Tech player caught that ball. But then College Game Day the next day, they do this whole Zapruder film on it, and Kirk Herbstreit isolates a holding call from like the third quarter and saying, look, they got hosed on this. By the way, they called holding on the wrong player. If you watch that same video that Kirk Herbstreit's saying, that's not a hold, look at the other player. They just misidentified the player. But look, there were bad calls that
It's a
entire
second
game.
holder, you're saying.
There were bad calls that entire game. Miami had a terrible holding call on a game on a play that would have made that game 21-7, and we're off and running. And Virginia Tech is dead there. They get a pick on the very next play, and Miami's in a dogfight the rest of the way. Probably not the right school to say dogfight with.
My working theory on this, Dan, since you didn't see it, was the officials were like, oh, I don't know what happened. We'll just call it a touchdown, and then they'll review it, and then we'll figure out what happened afterwards. And they were hoping there'd be clearer video that there wasn't.
That sounds like it makes sense to me based on what it is that you guys are showing me here, because I'm having an instantaneous reaction to this. And
someone else can figure this one out.
That is 100% what happened, and there's a lot of bad faith debaters out there that are saying, like Stugotz, but that was a call on the field. Let's just say something and take this to replay so we can get something a little bit more definitive. Now, it's a tough play. It's a massive humanity out there, but the one thing that you very clearly don't see in this video is a Virginia Tech player catching that ball, securing it all the way down, and scoring a touchdown. It's just not something that you see. Everybody fighting for that ball is out of bounds. If one of those players touches it while they're out of bounds, the ball is out of bounds. It's a dead play. The majority of the bodies are out there. You got like an ankle and two knees that are in bounds. It was absurd. Terrible call.
If it was a Canes player, you'd see the catch. I mean,
that's fair.
You'd
but
figure out a way to see the catch.
I think I've been fair, guys. Like I'm being fair here.
Brent
That
Pry
just wasn't
cost Virginia Tech that game.
He did. That was a terrible field goal.
When you get a chance to put up points, you put up points.
Yeah.
What are we getting cute for?
Well said.
Also, not enough is being said about how bad those polos are. That hokey is horrific. I don't know how they approved it. Terrible mascot to begin with, but the fact that they have a little cartoon turkey head on their little polos, horrific. You're dressed for failure. You're not dressing for success there, Dan.
help me understand what the general reaction was when people started fighting about this, because what you're getting from me is a 3-day-old take that is totally fresh because I'm witnessing this for the first time. You know, I went to the University of Miami. You know, I want the University of Miami to be good. But if you call that a touchdown, and all I'm seeing again and again in the replay is sort of like maybe he landed on his ass with the ball, I don't know, but you called it a touchdown, and then you go to the replay, and the replay doesn't show me something that indicates, well, you've disproven that it's a touchdown, even as what you say is true, which is that everyone is out of bounds. I can't.
Well, that's kind of a big one there, Dan, though. Like, you're saying that two sides out of your mouth right now. You're saying, Mike, I don't see anything, but I see
everybody's out of bounds, but his ass is still in bounds, and his ass landed first, and his ass may have landed with the ball, and the referees did call it in.
No, see, right there, 43 is landing. He has more possession of the ball when they're falling down. He falls down out of bounds. The ball is dead. I understand this was a debate. This was a hot topic, and very clearly people wanted Miami to lose that game, and everybody applies a standard of, well, the call on the field. It was a bad call on the field that they didn't call until like 20 seconds after that sequence.
But it was the call on the field. Dan is right. It was the call on the field. It might have been a bad call on the field, but it was the call on the field.
Right. So what happens when there's a bad call on the field, Stugotz? They go to replay and they find out proof to find out what the right call should be here, and they made the right call. You can talk to me till you're blue in the face. It wasn't a catch.
Why are you so defensive? You're 4-0.
I've had 3 days of
Cam Ward
this,
looks good.
No, Mike.
Did you see the Cam Ward play?
Yeah,
or
but
is your phone not working for that?
He
Dan?
needs to knock it off with the turnovers.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You didn't see the Cam Ward play?
No.
Oh.
On a 3rd and 3, he has a wide open Isaiah Horton, and he sails the ball over his head.
Mm-hmm.
Not that one.
The very next play, Xavier Restrepo falls down in his route.
No, not that one either.
And it was a 4th down. Your season's on the line here. Restrepo catches the ball while that's somebody catching while on his ass.
Not that play.
And then he is caught. Miami's offensive line, they go up against the nation's leading sack getter. The backup left tackle, has some poor moments, but they get pressure. This is more pressure than Cam Ward has faced his entire time in Miami by a long shot. And they get home on the quarterback. Quarterback makes a Patrick Mahomes type flip play. just great instincts, flips it over to his tight end, Riley Williams, who catches the ball and then runs, 35 yards after breaking an initial tackle. It was a massive play. The Restrepo play and the Williams play in particular were magical plays. It was we should say this because I could feel my blood boiling in ways that it hasn't all season long. This game was incredible. Start to finish, it was a standalone game. Everybody was into it, and that's why everybody has opinions about it, because this game delivered. You had Patrick Mahomes tweeting about the game. It was a fantastic game, a terrible game to watch on Gamecast, I imagine.
Not great. I do want to understand a little bit better, though, because you can imagine my confusion the way that I experienced this. Please tell me how much time elapsed between a stadium full of people seeing, because yes, this is the part that I want to examine, because
it's the only part you care about. Really.
Well, we've gotten into the minutia of something that people have been arguing about, I'm sure, for 3 days, and I've avoided somehow all the arguments. It's been blissful, actually. It was a blissful tranquility to be away from the internet in this way and to only be watching little splatters of football here and there where I knew that game wasn't going to be talked about. So I can tune in to Packers Vikings for a little bit here.
That was a good one.
And feel pretty good about the fact that the UM result isn't going to be on the screen so that I can come in here confused and you guys could explain it to me. I really want to understand if you guys have ever seen, because this part's being ignored, it seems like to me. Have you guys ever seen what it seems like you're describing to me without talking about it, which is touchdown on the field? Everyone is standing around in a stadium saying, Mario, you stink. Fire Mario. You're clearly better than this team.
No, they in the stadium seemed to be completely unaware that any of this was going on because they were doing like the light show or whatever. They were celebrating as though the game was over. Like they had won.
They were following the players.
Yeah, they didn't even know that Virginia Tech had been given a touchdown as a result of that.
We didn't notice that at first because it took quite some time for the officials to throw their arms up there. So you have... the entire game is a great rivalry, by the way. Shame on the ACC for saying that this wasn't a protected rivalry. They corrected that. And these teams play annually. The entire game, Dan, they're going back and forth doing the Cam Ward mocking celebration to us. So the Miami player runs out of that massive humanity with the ball. The light show starts going, and you breathe a deep sigh of relief. I look at Cynthia, my wife, next to me. She's like, I think he caught that. I'm like, how can you say anything there? And then shortly thereafter, the call on the field is touchdown, arms go up, and the sideline for Virginia Tech erupts. Now, whenever there's a controversial play, I always look to the sideline and the opposing coaches to see what they're being told in their headsets to see if there's a reason for conviction on the sideline. I tell you, brother, that sideline was confident. They thought they had it. And then as time goes on, you have in the stadium, to us, it seems pretty obvious because we don't have the commentators telling us what's happening there. But apparently on the national broadcast, Andre Ware was like, you can't overturn the call on the field. There's nothing here to overturn the call on the field, which is pretty much, even Stugotz, the standard that everybody is upholding here, which is not that it was a catch. It's just you can't overturn the call on the field.
But take me through, just real quick, and I'll leave this alone after this. Take me through whether a game has ever ended this way with a stadium full of people watching in terms of a delay between the game's over. I don't know who's caught it. He caught it. There was a signal of a touchdown. And then how much time is going by before they say, never mind, incomplete. So you have people, standing around for 15 minutes?
It was like an hour. It was a very long review.
Yeah.
It
took forever.
It was an eternity.
So wait a minute. You're telling me that this ended. So when I put my phone in my pocket to be present with my wife, you're telling me what I've missed is a game that has ended in a way that no game has ever ended that we've ever watched in the era of instant replay. That's what you guys are just blowing past? That what I put in my back pocket is an ending like none other in the history of sports.
There was a band on the field at one time. I mean, remember that one?
There was a band on the field, and the University of Miami also lost the national championship with fireworks in the sky because a call overturned it. But it wasn't 20 minutes. It wasn't 20 minutes with a stadium full of people just waiting around for a touchdown that wasn't a touchdown to be called an incompletion.
Guarantee you Pearl Jam had a concert the same day as the band on the field.
This segment has a great deal of potential to be exceptional or potential to be a total catastrophe.
Yes.
No.
But if it is, Dan, that's on us. It is not on the guest.
That
It will
is
be
correct.
on me and you.
That is correct.
Right,
And
yes.
Billy, because Billy is delighted right now sitting in that seat of everything that's happening. Has a great deal of potential to be exceptional or potential to be a total catastrophe.
Yes.
Option
but if
one,
it is,
so we're
Dan-
headed
Yeah, it
towards
sounds like
there.
option
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's,
it
turn
looks
that down.
like we need to
Catastrophe,
turn that down. So this is the segment that we're trying to do. Billy is in charge, and he's smiling a great deal because this is what he wants to happen. And I don't know why he wants this to happen, but Jay Hook and Craig Anderson are with us, and they're here to celebrate. They are, of the 9 living members of the 1962 New York Mets, they're the only 2 who played the entire season, the only guys who were there to lose all 120 games. And this is a big time for them because the White Sox are now in our most historic sport, officially, worse than the 1962 Mets were. They used to be the worst team in baseball history by record. But I don't think Craig Anderson has used Zoom before, and he's joining us through Zoom and through the phone of one of our producers. Jay Hook, for some reason, is a Zoom veteran.
Oh, yes.
Like, he knows exactly what he's doing right now. He is polished and ready to go. Look, he has got a visual aid for us
Yep.
of a Mets cap. So we will say hello, gentlemen, to both of you, Craig and Jay, and congratulations. We are very happy for you. Did you spend the entire weekend, Jay, buoyant and effervescent because finally your names can leave the record book? There is a worse baseball team in baseball history than the 1962 Mets.
Well, I did watch the White Sox and the Tigers play. Where I live on a farm in northern Michigan, and we so we weren't down at the games, but that's the only station I can really get on our TV is the Chicago White Sox. I mean the Detroit Tigers games. So fortunately, the White Sox played 3 in Detroit and won a couple, but they lost 1, which put them at 121, which was 1 better than the 120 that we had. And I have to tell you, the Detroit Tigers lost 119 in 2003. So there's a 119, there's a 120, and there's a 121 now. So you can see anybody could do it.
Well, you guys played only 160, right? You were 40 and 120. You feel like the White Sox cheated here to get the record? They had an extra 2 games.
Right.
That's true. That's true. When we had 2 rainouts, and Casey, I think, probably said, I don't think we need to worry about making those 2 games up.
Now, Craig, can you hear us? Were you celebrating at all this weekend? Were you keeping track of what it is that was happening this weekend?
Yes, I've been keeping track for about 2 weeks. Yes.
And how have you felt as you've watched it? Did the White Sox scare you a little bit by winning 3 straight out of nowhere?
I think you're right about one thing. I thought this was going to be over sooner than it was. But yes, I'm very happy that the Met fans are relieved of the record.
And Jay, how were you rooting during these games you were watching? Were you fixated and were you actively rooting for the White Sox to lose?
No, I was just watching. You know, after 62 years of holding that record, you know, it didn't make much difference. And as Craig has said many times, and I've said many times, we really I didn't feel we kept track of those back then the way that you keep track of them now. We knew we weren't a very good team, but I don't think, you know, the players and the fans, it was always that next game we're going to win. And I think the players felt that way.
How about you, Craig? Was your opinion any different? Were you rooting for the White Sox to lose?
I like Jay said, we were losing games, but there wasn't anything about the record. That didn't happen. We were a first-year team. We were doing the best we can, so we knew we were having a bad season. But they weren't comparing us to anybody else at that time. So at the end of the season, I think they had a meeting and decided that they're going to make ours the worst ever. And that's how it started, I think. We just were glad. We tried to do the best we could, but when it was over, it was over and onward and upward till next season.
Now, Jay, in 1962, you were 8-19, while Craig was only 3-17. So I'll ask you, Jay, who do you feel was more responsible for the record of 120 losses?
I think probably everyone was. We weren't hitting too well, and the pitching was sporadic, and the fielding wasn't too great either. So it was the whole team effort, I guess.
Jay, you're being too nice. You're being a team player. Say it was Craig. I mean, come on. We all know it was Craig.
They're good teammates. They're good teammates. Craig may have been 3-17, but Craig, you somehow won 2 of those games in the same day. Tell me about tell me about that day where you were 3-17, but you won 2 of the games in the same day.
I just happened to be the right guy in the game at the right time.
There you go.
2 clutch hits in the 9th inning of both games, and I had pitched the 8th and the 9th of each game, or at least I think that's what it was. And then Bill Hodges hit a homer, and Hobie Landreth hit a homer in the bottom of the 9th. And so there we were, off and running. And our record got better right about that time, too. And we thought we were not going to go into a tailspin like we did later.
Seems like you guys are saying you got bad run support that year, if I'm reading between the lines here.
13 by 1 run.
Wait a minute. Who was that?
Who said that?
Who was that? Who was 13 losses? Who said 13 losses by 1 run? Whose wife is that?
Must have been Craig's. Probably Judy.
Judy, bring her in. Was Judy there for the ride in 1962?
Phrasing.
Dan. Come on,
Dan.
What?
Hey, I led the league in unearned runs being on my record.
That's right.
Your
darndest thing.
Your teammates let you down.
Yep.
Your teammates. Now, after you won those 2 games in the same day, though, Craig, you went on to lose 19 straight decisions, albeit in a hitter's park. Those last 2 wins were the last wins of your career, correct?
That was the problem. It was unfair. It was a hitter's park. I mean,
We came close a few times. It just didn't work out.
I love how supportive Judy is in the background. It's so good. Jake, what do you remember about that season that you would say was the most positive thing about that season?
Well, in 2003, the Tigers were losing a lot of games, and the LA Times asked me to write an op-ed piece for their paper. And I wrote this article, and the title of it was something like, "In Baseball or Life, there's a new game tomorrow until the end of the season." And I've always felt that the players didn't lose, hope of winning. I really felt that they came out every day, and we may have lost the day before, but it was a new game, and we had a chance to win it. And I felt the attitude was that way with the players. I thought that attitude, the fans in New York were absolutely terrific. And we had Casey Stengel as the manager. And after every game in when we were at the Polo Grounds, he would call, there were probably 12 papers in New York and or something more maybe or less. But every paper had a sports writer, and he would call those sports writers into his office. He knew they were the vehicle to reach the fans, and he would tell them stories. He'd give them something to drink, and he'd tell them stories in the past. He'd tell them stories about the game, something funny that may have happened during the game or whatever. And when they left his office, they had their 12 inches of column filled, and he made their job, probably a little more palatable. And so he, that really was, I think, very helpful for the team. Whereas in 2003, with Alan Trammell as manager, he'd been a really good player, but he hadn't managed, and that was his only year of managing, I think. So, it really probably affected his career. But Casey had won, I think, 10 pennants or something with the Yankees, so nothing was going to, tear him down. He'd been successful. And the thing Craig and I have both talked about is that there were so many players on that team that these losses didn't define their life. They went on to other things. Richie Ashburn became a famous announcer in Philadelphia. Roger Craig became a pitching coach, and then he managed, I think, one of the teams out in California and had a pennant. Gil Hodges ended up managing the Mets when they won the pennant in 1969. So there were a lot of players that went on. Craig went on to Lehigh, back where he graduated. I did a bunch of things after baseball. And so it didn't define our life. And I think that was positive.
Craig, Jay told us before that he only gets the White Sox channel, so I'm wondering if you've been keeping up with the Mets. They have a twin
The Tigers channel.
Yeah,
is
the
only
Tigers
one he
channel.
gets.
Sorry,
Yes,
yeah.
it's
So I'm
fine.
wondering if you're keeping up with the Mets. They have a twin bill against the Bravos today for the playoffs on the line. You guys watching the Mets at all? Okay.
Craig, that was for you. Did you hear his question?
I didn't. No, I didn't quite hear it.
He said that the Mets have a doubleheader today
twin
against
bill
the
is what he
Braves.
said.
Yeah, twin bill
Thank
against
you,
the Bravos.
Mr. Gotts.
Right.
I
Playoff
appreciate the
implications.
support.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
a twin bill they have today for a playoff spot. Are you going to be watching?
Yes. Can I add something to what Jay said?
Yes.
At the end of the year, like in the White Sox stands and other losing team stands, empty seats here, empty seats there. When we had the end of our season, we still had 12, 15, 20,000 people in the stands.
You tell them.
To me, it was a big difference between the fans sticking with us to the end until the season was over, as opposed to the White Sox fans, dropping them. You could tell. And then I think that I look back on that as our fans were fantastic. They held us. They came out all season long, win or lose. And I think Jay and I will both say that had a lot to do with us sticking together as a team and doing the best we could.
Jay, what do you remember about the game you never finished? The game ended early. It was a tie because of curfew.
I don't remember that at all.
Really? Really?
All right, gentlemen, I don't know if you have champagne there, but we'd like to make a toast from Jimmy Breslin. I'm going to quote Jimmy Breslin here. Let's make a toast here to celebrate the fact that the 62 Mets are no longer the worst. I'm going to quote Jimmy Breslin, the famous writer in New York. Quote, "You see, the Mets are losers just like nearly everybody else in life. This is a team for the cab driver who gets held up and the guy who loses out on a promotion because he didn't maneuver himself to lunch with the boss enough. It is the team for every guy who has to get out of bed in the morning and go to work for short money on a job he does not like. And it is the team for every woman who looks up 10 years later and sees her husband eating dinner in a T-shirt and wonders how the hell she ever let this guy talk her into getting married. The Yankees, who does well enough to root for them? Lawrence Rockefeller." A toast to the 1962 Mets.
Yes.
No longer the worst team ever. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Way to go, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Wow.
That's very exciting. Oh, good Lord, Craig. You swing that down. Craig.
Oh, my God, Craig. Take it easy.
An aggressive
Got a twin bill today.
An aggressive toast from Craig. Thank you, gentlemen. That was delightful. We appreciate you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mike. Getting Craig on the Zoom, did it remind you of all the work during the pandemic that you did with Bob Costas and Stephen A. Smith and everyone else trying to get them on the Zoom?
Those Mets were way better at that than Bob Costas.
After a giant football weekend, I really love that we just did that right there.
That's important work. That was really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, come on. What, are you kidding me? Like that team, that was a team for all time. My parents, 7 years later, they won the World Series. 7 years later because of what those guys built in that city.
They laid the foundation.
They did lay the foundation.
For the 69 Mets.
You know what? I need to take a break right now to gather myself. Let's just take a break for a second. And I'm lightheaded. I'm so excited. I can't believe how quickly Craig shoveled down that champagne. We're back after this. I think that's the way we keep up and grab the younger demo. I think that is the way to do that. Craig swilled that champagne at 9:49 in the morning. That's a man who knows how to drink champagne.
That's a man who's going to be sleeping at 1 o'clock for the Mets twin bill. I mean,
did you guys get surprised at all? I know we've seen this enough in football that I suppose you can only be so surprised. But Derrick Henry's still running away from a secondary at that size on the first play of a game, going 87 yards when he plays football the way he plays football, right? It's not just that you're surprised by that the first time it happens or the first 10 times it happens on a screen pass, but he played football in the SEC and carried the ball a ton. We've watched him play the prime of his career in a way that's more physical than any other running back in the sport. And still running away from the Bills secondary. Like, you have to appreciate what you're watching there in terms of physical specimen.
You're watching greatness. I mean, he's 30 years old. He's still doing that. He had 199 yards total for the game last night. And I'm not certain the Ravens aren't the best team in football. I mean, they're 2-2, but the Ravens are really good, and Derrick Henry is a special kind of player. He is.
I mean, they lost the
care.
Chiefs.
I don't
the
care.
reigning,
They lost at home to the
I don't
Raiders.
care. I don't
What do you
care.
mean? They
By
lost
a
at
toe.
home.
I don't care.
That Chiefs game was a toe, if you remember correctly.
I
mean, you could say, like, I like their chances come playoff time. They could possibly win the AFC, but you can't say with a straight face they're the best team in the NFL right now. They lost to the reigning multi-time champion who is presently 4-0.
What I said is I'm not
4-0
certain.
though is-
Yeah, that 4-0. Dan is right. I mean, it appears like something is off in Kansas City.
I didn't say
Dan
that.
said
It's
that,
what you said
as I
last week. You
remember.
spent the entire week saying it. Don't get – no. I'm responding to you.
Stugotz major penalty, 5 minutes for talking about the Chiefs.
Let's have some vision. I'm saying a 2-2 team is the best team in the NFL. No one else is saying it.
They lost at home to the Raiders.
Are they for real?
The Raiders?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
This week they are.
No. Get out of here. From that Bills game, the Bills losing 35-10, there were a couple of results yesterday that you're like, explain that to me. Explain to me how it is that Philadelphia looks like that after the way Philadelphia looked last week. Explain to me how the Falcons won without scoring an offensive touchdown. They didn't score.
Great kicker. Yeah. Great kicker. And Philadelphia lost like that in the playoffs to the same team.
Defense and special teams, too. For
Baker Mayfield was really good. They were dropping perfect passes all day. Baker Mayfield was as impressive a quarterbacking display as we saw all this week. And by the way, really interesting dynamic by a vastly improved Tom Brady. I was actually at a place where this was a lone game. I wasn't able to watch Red Zone, so I actually got to hear Tom Brady for an extended period of time. He gave away great, juicy nuggets. Like, I almost signed with the Chicago Bears. They were very stealthy in their approach to me, but then I put together this entire SWAT board as to why I picked Tampa Bay. So that was a great nugget. And him actually feuding on the air with Baker Mayfield was a pretty interesting thing, basically saying, well, like, I had a high-stress environment over there. I'm sorry. I thought stressful was not having Super Bowl rings. So hearing his approach, that's what Tom Brady needs to bring every week because he is by far the most interesting person, has had the most interesting career out of any of the commentators, his most illustrious career. So if we get that insight and we get him borrowing his stories from his own career, that's his secret sauce, and I thought he was great.
Let's read the quotes directly on how it is that Baker Mayfield and Tom Brady were going back and forth. Because Baker Mayfield said on a podcast last week, obviously, this is a quote, obviously playing-wise, Tom is different. He had everyone dialed in, high-strung environment, so I think everybody was pretty stressed out. They wanted me to come in, be myself, bring the joy back to football for guys who weren't having as much fun. And so discussing this during the broadcast, Brady said, I thought stressful was not having Super Bowl rings. It's just a great sentence.
And a very divorced sentence.
I thought stressful was not having Super Bowl rings, so there was a mindset of a champion that I took to work every day. This wasn't daycare. If I was going to have fun, I'd go to Disneyland with my kids. There's a way to approach this game, and it's with the right mindset to try to push each other outside our comfort zone, and great teammates do that. I have someone like Gronk. I have someone like Evans. There's high expectations for us. We've got to make sure we go out there and deliver. There's no one way to do it, but I think Tom Brady speaks with a voice that his is the way to do it, and there is no arguing that his way didn't work.
Well, between the two of them, only one of them has done it. So
correct.
I'm going to side with Brady on this.
Oh,
one.
but you can. I don't know whether Mahomes stresses out his teammates or not. It is funny to hear Tom Brady say that his was the way because he was always pushing his teammates. It is also funny to see him clearly get agitated by what it is that Baker Mayfield said, because when Burkhardt came to Brady and said, "Oh man, this is still inside you, right?" and he was like, "That will never leave me. Like this feeling will never leave me of being defensive in this circumstance about how I did things as if it wasn't the right way to lead."
I'm kind of here for, and I don't know if anyone is listening, they're probably not. If any opposing quarterbacks whose games Tom Brady's about to do are listening right now, just take a shot at him every week. Like, let's see how crazy we can drive Tom Brady with just like little subtle jabs at him, undercutting him or his career in some way. Because it seems like he's going to come and he's going to air it out on the broadcast. So I kind of hope that all the quarterbacks just start taking like little subtle digs at Tom Brady that week to see what they'll get him to say.
I did hear that towards the end of his time in Tampa, Brady was pretty much done with Mike Evans' general approach to football. And I'm sure it went both ways, and Mike Evans wanted something a little bit looser. Yes, there's more ways to win a title. You don't have to be as high-strung as Tom Brady was. But you mentioned there's multiple ways to do it. There apparently is only one way to be the greatest quarterback of all time. And so when he's
stressing everyone out?
Yeah.
There's one way to win 7 titles.
Yeah, he's proven it. And he's shown you, too, that with Aaron Rodgers' performance over the weekend, that he put the standard for aging quarterbacks at such a ridiculous place that we were convincing ourselves guys like Aaron and Drew Brees could do it just because Tom was, and maybe that we were in a whole new era of science. Nobody, still, the science is still evolving and is as good for these guys. Nobody was Tom, who was beating Patrick Mahomes in Super Bowls damn near his mid-40s. Incredible.
We will get to that Jets game in a second because I don't know if the assessment in the rain is something I'm ready to make when they just kept blitzing Aaron Rodgers, and what Aaron Rodgers needed to be great that Tom Brady never needed to be great was a mobility that Aaron Rodgers no longer has. And so if you blitz him like that in the rain, all of a sudden what you're going to end up getting is a quarterback who cannot move the way that he used to and has lost his youth with his legs. We'll get to that in a second. But from that Ravens-Bills game that the Bills lost by 25 points, another thing that made an appearance beyond Derrick Henry, this stat from Next Gen Stats, Stugotz. Josh Allen had a throw to Shakir on the sideline for 52 yards when he was within a yard of the sideline.
He was 0.9 yards away from the sideline. It was an incredible throw, and I know the stat, and it's incredible.
That's right. Next Gen Stats, it's a 52-yard completion, and as Stugotz said, 0.9 yards away from the sideline. In that situation in his career, Josh Allen is 6 of 7 for 118 yards and 3 touchdown passes. The rest of the NFL is 1 for 16.
He should just play from the sideline.
He should just play 0.9 yards from the sideline. You said Baker Mayfield had the most impressive quarterbacking performance of the weekend. He did not. Daniels did, and I can't believe what's happening there. The Commanders have the most efficient offense in the sport. That through 4 games, Daniels is the MVP of the league. That's nuts.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how he's playing. You're not supposed to be able to complete all your passes when you just got to the league and everything's supposed to be moving too fast for you. I did manage, Stugotz, to catch because the University of Miami result wasn't going to make an appearance at the end of that Jets game. I was in a restaurant and I saw on the television, I'm with one of my friends, and we see the late game situation of the Broncos are up by a couple of points and the Jets have the ball in their own territory with Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback. And my friend says the Broncos could have two defenses on the field right now, and Aaron Rodgers is going to win this game.
Sure, yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers did what you've wanted a quarterback to do for the Jets for a very long time, which is get his team in the field goal position to win the game after being bad all game and after having only 3 field goals all game. And then Zerline is the one who lets you down because the Jets are being the Jets. You get a pass interference call. 2 games were decided yesterday, by at least 2 that I saw, by pass interference call. The Falcons game at the end, I don't know why more teams don't do this late. Just get the 40 yards on a pass interference call. Just take the shot.
Just throw it up.
30 and 40 yards downfield, because you got the 2 pass interference calls, and the Jets did get into position. And however down you are on the Jets today, because you said they will not have shown me anything unless they beat the Broncos by 3 touchdowns and they end up losing at home to the Broncos, what you have is a quarterback that you trust late, Stugotz, because if they lost that game, at the end, it's not because of Aaron Rodgers. You can say before that Aaron Rodgers wasn't good enough, but at the end he was good enough.
He was fine. Aaron Rodgers, Dan, put them in that position with his play. That team played lousy yesterday. Defense played good enough, obviously. Bo Nix had -7 yards of passing at half, and the Jets still lost the game. I'm going to put this on Aaron Rodgers. He made me feel great last week against New England. He played a near-flawless game. But this is on Aaron. We didn't get Aaron Rodgers to score 9 points against a lousy Bronco team at home. We didn't get him for that. We didn't get Aaron Rodgers so Bo Nix could beat him on the road and throw his first touchdown pass while doing so. That's not the reason we got Aaron Rodgers. I've seen the Jets play this game for 40 years. And for 1 year, I just want to see something different. And what I saw yesterday was everything I've seen for 4 decades of being a Jet fan, and that's on Aaron Rodgers. He did not play well yesterday from start to finish. He got banged up towards the end. You can blame the kicker all you want. That game should have been over by halftime, and it wasn't. And the reason it wasn't is because Aaron's not playing that well. And you can't be the Yoda of quarterbacks, walking around the Jets facility telling everyone this is how you win, this is what you have to do, and come out and go 24 of 42 for 225 yards. You can't do it. They're a better team. They should have beaten that team. The game never should have came down to a kick, and all of it, and I mean all of it. It's not on Robert Saleh. It's not on the Jets' defense. It's not on the running game. It's not on Nathaniel Hackett. It's on Aaron. What happened yesterday is on Aaron Rodgers.
Rackham. That's a great take. Zach Wilson was on that sideline for the Broncos, and he got run out of town for throwing up the effort Aaron Rodgers did on Sunday.
It drives me crazy. I give him credit for making me feel a way I've never felt before 40 years of being a Jet fan. That was last week against New England. This year felt like every other game that I have ever watched, but more frustrating because this time I actually have a quarterback, but a quarterback who played bad. He was bad yesterday.
Have you guys ever seen the Bo Nix stat line at halftime of 7 completions for -7 passing yards? Is that something that any of us have ever seen before, where you go 7 for 15 for -7 passing yards? Because that's what the Jets lost to yesterday. I'm not going to disagree with you on what happened earlier. You're emotional, and I understand why, because losing at home to the Broncos in a season of expectations that Aaron Rodgers has lifted is going to make any kind of Jets fan mad. But at the end of the game on the last drive, even though it was all dink and dunk, because it was all dink and dunk, he got them in position to win the football game. That's not up for dispute. You can't say it's all Aaron Rodgers' fault when you've got What are you looking at me like that
Because
for?
they miss a kick and they got the ball. Like they got in. He didn't put them in position to win that game. They missed a kick and they got the ball at
Wait a
midfield.
minute. So Cousins,
and Aaron Rodgers couldn't get 15 yards.
So Cousins gets to be a winner yesterday because Koo makes a kick from 58 yards. So Cousins gets to be clutch late in the game.
Yeah,
because,
but you're attributing like a matriculation down the field that didn't happen.
No.
Like Aaron Rodgers did not get them in position for that field goal. They got the ball at midfield.
They missed a field goal, got the ball right there. And then he drove him, 12, 15 yards, 20 yards.
He literally needed to make a play. He even got a call. He even got a call in that process to help him get that win, and he still couldn't do anything. And he was blaming the weather, and the weather was bad, but we mentioned Tom Brady, and that's who Aaron Rodgers is compared to. Tom Brady was the greatest bad weather quarterback of all time. You gotta beat an NFL team when your defense holds the other team to 10 points, especially when that team is quarterbacked by Bo Nix. You got to win that game. That's what you brought him in there for. That's what last season was, an abomination for the Jets. Not only was he not playing, not only did he get injured his first series as a Jet, but he was also making national headlines all year, and they were just swallowing it because you brought him in for a reason. And that reason wasn't to lose to Zach Wilson's new team. Well, they put up 10 points.
The reason you bring in Aaron Rodgers is so that game doesn't come down to a field goal like every other game I've ever watched the Jets play.
Or every game in the NFL that's played every single week.
I know, but Dan, this guy is supposed to be different, and he has been different at least for a week. I just want to see it every single week. On the positive side, the Jets are 2-2. The Bills are 3-1. The Dolphins and Patriots don't appear to be very good. So if there is a bright side, the Jets do have a chance here. Yesterday was so frustrating. I don't care about the weather. I don't care about Robert Saleh. I have an all-time quarterback, and that all-time quarterback played horrifically yesterday. Terrible.
What a sad football weekend for you. Like, you missed the UM game. I'm sure you missed Georgia, Alabama, and one of the two games you saw was Jets-Broncos.
Bad game.
That horrible.
Just the end of it, too.
I apologized to Abby. for making her watch it. I did. I had to apologize. I'm like, this game is lousy.
Go? You just turned. You said, "I'm sorry."
She said, "I'm not watching it." What are you talking about?
You missed really cool video from the Miami Virginia Tech game too. The sidelines are rocking again because Miami's back. Michael Irvin was just a presence, to say the least. Sure we have video of. I want you to pay attention. And hopefully this video has sound. You could hear a pin drop in the stadium as everybody is waiting for the call. And I wish I knew who took this video so I could credit them. But here's a video isolated on Jason Taylor, a D-line coach for Miami, waiting to see what the call was. And hear this crowd. The stadium was really fun on Friday night. Hear this crowd erupt.
How long? Can you give me a count for how many minutes it took? I'm still maintaining.
Look at Michael Irvin.
So good.
I'm still maintaining that a football game has never ended this way before. Just everyone milling about waiting for the officials for 25 minutes before you can celebrate, and no one can leave. I'm assuming you guys have been to all of these games.
Oh, plenty of people left, Dan.
I'm assuming that people are going to their cars without knowing what the result is. They're like me at the Pearl Jam concert with the phone in the pocket, not knowing what actually happened in the game. What are the people outside who are trying to beat traffic? What is their reaction when they hear the stadium erupt as the cue to they've watched a whole football game without knowing the result until they get to the parking lot?
Like Kirk Gibson's home run?
Well, they already knew the results. It just wasn't confirmed by the replay.
No, they didn't.
Right.
They didn't.
Yeah, no, they knew. Touchdown, we won. And then they left. By the way, Michael Irvin looked like he jumped in a pool in the first quarter. That's a lot of sweat that he's doing. Was it that hot?
Of course, it's Miami. It's swampy.
But no one else looked as drenched as Michael Irvin did.
Those people left the stadium thinking that Virginia Tech had won, correct?
They left thinking that was a game-winning touchdown. The lights were doing the thing, and they left. They thought the game was over on a touchdown.
But a game-winning touchdown would be Virginia Tech winning.
Yeah, what Billy is saying is they turn their back after they see the Miami player run to midfield with a ball in his hand, and the lights go there, and they're like, okay, let's head to the car.
That's what I meant.
Meanwhile, 5 seconds later, the referee's throwing touchdown signals in the air, and Virginia Tech's taking the field. Yeah. In this scenario, we're already walking to our car. We're in the mezzanine level.
There have to be people who are trying to beat traffic. That is something that happens all over South Florida. It happens at concerts. Do you guys often leave before the encore because you're...
I left Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Ray Allen shot. I mean, you're talking to the wrong person
You're
here.
trying to beat. You're trying to beat traffic. You're trying to beat everybody else, and you miss important and good things. No one has yet to tell me, though, how much time elapsed, the elapsed time between when you thought the game ended, in real time, when you thought it's a weird thing. You guys are basically telling me that people are milling about for about a quarter of football, the real time of about a quarter. There's a fifth quarter of football that you're just sitting around waiting for an officiating ruling.
It felt like forever.
It was like 20 legitimate minutes. It was a really long time.
You could have told me that it was 4 minutes. You could have told me that it was a half hour. I had no real concept of time in that moment.
Forever.
Yeah, my heart had fallen out of my ass at that point.
But this is what the reason that I want to examine this is because you specifically being in a special purgatory where you care so emotionally about this team and you're just in a stew of both rage and what is coming my way. Is America about to delight in the way that I have lost this football game because I'm going to get jobbed by an officiating call?
Right. And I trust me, it would have been many times worse. In my box, I have the feeds, but I don't hear the broadcasters. I went home after that game. By the way, wonderful day to shut down the 826. Just masterful planning by our community leaders. The main road out of there. Let's just close it down after a game.
826 guy, not the turnpike.
I try to do both, but they try to direct you one way. You're stuck with it.
Yeah.
Go and vote.
Yeah, but I watched the game on the key
no one's
plays.
Gonna fix the 826. I hate to tell you guys. Whoever's lying to you, telling you that if you vote for them, they're going to fix the 826, it's impossible.
They've been trying to fix that for about 25 years, maybe even 30.
I watched the end of the broadcast when I finally got back home. Like I got home at like close to 2 a.m. Oh. That's how late I was out in traffic, and I saw the broadcast and I was like, thank God I didn't have the sound here, because if I were watching that broadcast, and it honestly like established a narrative because he was hammering. You can't overturn this call on the field. Not a moment was spent on the call on the field was wrong. It's just, well, it's all ambiguous and it's a game of inches, so you got to go with what the ref said. I would have been so nervous if I were watching that game.
Stugotz, that one is always fascinating to me. People vastly underestimate how much the broadcasters influence the way people watching react to that stuff. You said it was Andre Ware who was doing that. They can absolutely establish with indignance, for as much as we hate the broadcasters all the time and complain about the broadcasters, what you rarely see in that instance is a groundswell of people yelling at the broadcaster. The broadcaster influences more the people watching when he goes with whatever his or her opinion is, especially if it's indignant. The viewers are very willing to be followers in that situation, and they don't know what to think sometimes until the broadcaster tells them what to think. We've got one broadcaster who no one should listen to next.
We're going to be joined by a fancy young lad, Christopher Whittingham. Very excited. It's presented by LinkedIn Jobs. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/prep. Terms and conditions apply.
Chris Whittingham is a fancy lad.
I and many people have admired what Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes have built with Smartless. It's legitimately one of the most popular podcasts in America, bigger than the Kelseys, bigger than Jon Stewart. They're building it into a legitimate empire. They have shows with Johnny Knoxville, Rex Chapman. They've got a big deal with SiriusXM. You can find us there, too. And now Smartless, Sirius, and Meadowlark are partnering on a new show that's already one of the most popular sports podcasts in America. It's called Goalless.
Like the sport.
Goalless. It's a funny show about soccer, the Champions League specifically, Mondays and Thursdays, including Mike Ryan every Monday on the Sirius XM app and wherever you get your podcasts. It's hosted by the massively popular British comedian Russell Howard and this guy, Chris Whittingham. So look at him. Look at that big smile. Yes. Whittingham, we're bringing you in because we want to get your thoughts here on the ending of the University of Miami Virginia Tech game. We want to understand what it is that you, as a professional, impartial broadcaster who doesn't like to bother Mike Ryan at all, what you thought of the end of that football game.
Wait, when do I like to bother Mike Ryan? I don't like to bother him at all.
I said who doesn't like to bother Mike Ryan at all. That's what I just said.
Seems sarcastic.
It felt like a jab. It felt like there is this implication that I do like to bother Mike
There is
Ryan.
that whole hockey thing.
I felt it.
There is that whole hockey
Oh, don't
thing.
get me started with that again.
That's not aimed at you. It wasn't aimed at you.
It was aimed at me.
At Paul Maurice and Matthew Tkachuk. I don't like them.
Those
very much.
losers.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. Finally, common ground that we can agree on.
Right.
Yeah, it was... Did you guys not find that uproariously funny, the end of that Miami Hurricanes game? If you can separate yourself from the outcome, that was hilarious. That is as funny of an ending of a college football game as I've ever seen, even down to the manner in which the Miami Hurricanes acquired that lead. Cameron Ward is throwing to a receiver on the ground. He was on the ground, and somehow he caught it. Shoveling pass, and then this play is absolutely ridiculous. And honestly... It's one of the few instances, and obviously there was lots of refereeing talk. Mike likes to talk about the referees. A lot of Hurricanes fans like to talk about the referees. But this was one of the rare instances where common sense prevailed over what our eyes were seeing, which was, I don't think on video review you could overturn that. But common sense, I think all of us watching it, he didn't catch that. And you just stare at it over and over again, the mass of bodies, and you're just like, he didn't catch that. I can't see it from my own eyes, but I'm certain that I couldn't even identify who on Virginia Tech did catch it, even if indeed you thought it was a catch. I just thought the whole thing was hilarious.
When does that ever happen? I don't think that ever is officiating what it's supposed to be, which is please be an arbiter of human judgment. I believe what they do is generally just stick to the rules as strictly as they possibly can, and common sense tends to get swallowed in that instance. And I would assume in this instance that you would have expected it to again get swallowed, because technically the call on the field should stand unless you're using common sense.
Right, which is exactly what, as you said, the referees did there. And also, not to drift off into conspiracy land, but when you're staring at it for 6 minutes, you have to imagine part of the calculus will be, well, hang on a second. Virginia Tech has already lost to Rutgers and Vanderbilt. Miami is probably the ACC's lone hope of getting into the college football playoff.
That's wrong.
If you're going to err one way, you're going to err on the side of the team that can make the college football playoff. And so normally Miami appears to be on the wrong end of, as Joe Zagacki would say on the radio, Greensboro conspiracies. But now I guess this is maybe the one time that it probably does go in their favor.
Don't you dare disrespect Rutgers and Vanderbilt again. Wow. Those are good teams. They're okay teams.
Are they?
Rutgers is going.
Okay,
Rutgers.
You started it okay.
Rutgers
you
is Miami's
good
last.
And drifted to okay very quickly.
She got carried away with Vandy.
Vandy could be 4-0. They're like a couple plays away from 4-0.
They're not.
They are. Diego Pavia is really good, and
bike.
Rutgers is the last team to have beaten Miami, and they will most likely make it to a bowl game this year. And they beat Washington in a great game on Saturday. So you got to put some respect on Rutgers. They are back. That's the birthplace of college football.
I love Stugotz arguing about Vandy having not watched a Vandy game.
Why would I?
Knowing nothing about any Vandy,
thing.
never,
Not
not,
a
not,
thing.
no, not ever having watched a Vandy game. Not just
Real
this
Vandy
year.
expert over there. You didn't watch any of the games.
I'm not sitting here making any kinds of arguments with a great deal of verve about what I don't know. Lucy, welcome. It's nice. It's nice to see you. The University of Miami. Do you disagree with anything that Whittingham had to say there?
I walked in late. I didn't hear anything. I just heard him disrespect Rutgers and Vanderbilt, and that made me really, really angry.
Your University of Miami, Virginia Tech opinion at the end of that game?
It was the right call. Like, I don't know what happened. You couldn't tell. Nothing was clear. I just am confused on, like, what... It was the right call. Yes, I think at the end of the day, the right result was made. But, like, you called it a catch, and then you said it wasn't a catch. My whole thing is I wish that the ref had said something more than just, like, call was overturned. He gave zero explanation. He just said, changed our minds. And then that was it. And we were like, and then... Okay, like what else?
That's an excellent point. The ACC put out a statement, and they clarified what happened there was a loose ball that was touched by a player that was out of bounds, which makes the entire play dead. That would have been a great explanation there. But at that point, the story and the social media banter has just gotten all out of control.
When you put out a statement, though, that's going too far. Like, to try to explain yourself, like, just scoreboard, that's it, game's over, move on.
It's never good when you're reminded Al Riveron's in charge of everything.
I mean, officials don't need to make a statement about a call. It's absurd.
And it's also not even the social media banter. It's the reactions of the two teams. Because Miami had already celebrated with flickering lights, which, by the way, let's ban flickering lights in any form of celebration.
Yes!
It doesn't help doesn't help anyone. The television cameras can't see a damn thing. We're trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and you're flickering the lights. And, hey, we won! Let's flicker the lights. But then, so Miami has already celebrated the victory. And then the referee gets on the mic. I can only imagine how the stadium's collective hearts dropped when the referee gets on the mic and goes, "The ruling on the field is a touchdown." And you're going, huh? How did we get there? And then the Virginia Tech players and fans have spent a 6-minute long review thinking that they've won the game. So one way or another, the ACC explanation is not going to suffice for a group of people that think they have won a football game.
We're talking so much about this call and not enough about how Brent Pry has no clue how to manage a game clock at all. That was some of the most atrocious coaching I have ever seen. Like, there was a point where I was like, I don't think he knows how much time is left. I genuinely don't think he has any idea what's on the clock. Like, absolutely batshit, because that game probably should have come down to a couple long shots for Virginia Tech to score, but he did such a bad job managing the clock that they were put in that position. So, like, doesn't really matter at the end of the day what the call was. Obviously, it went in Miami's favor, but, like, brother, you did a terrible job. Also, the weird fake field goal, Brent, you got to calm down, okay? It's just, we're up here, I need you down here.
That was their moment to kill the game. It was their moment to kill the game. And on 4th and 3, with how they had effectively run the ball, especially that one pitch play, did the 9th time that pitch play out wide work? No one in the Miami defensive staff go, we should probably work on the pitch play. But either way, the fact that they went for the fake field goal instead of doing what they had done all game, which is run down Miami's throats.
Do you know how bad you have to be at coaching for Lucy to come in here and say that in a game that involved Mario Cristobal?
That was the craziest part. All I thought was, like, Mario's going to be like, this is good stuff. I'm writing this down. Oh, my God. I would have done the same thing.
But, Dan, I mean, you have the number 20 behind you. You've been doing the show for 20 years. How many times have we seen that Miami Hurricanes performance? Outsized expectations going into a game, you're like, oh man, we're down 2 scores at home to 2-2 Virginia Tech. I mean, that's happened so many times. And to Cristobal's credit, he did say after the game, we've lost that game every time over 20 years, but the manner in which you won it does not exactly leave you convinced.
I want to get back to what Stugotz is arguing on behalf of, though. He says that the officials shouldn't put out a statement or explanation of any kind. Stugotz just wants mass confusion and anarchy, and is saying it's absurd and asinine for the conference to explain what the ruling was.
Sometimes too much information is exactly that. It's too much information. It makes you look guilty. I mean, when do referees come up and put out a statement?
Every time that there's a controversial call.
I don't want to hear it.
In every league where money's gambled on games.
And what I'm telling them to do is stop doing it. They have a job to do. It's a very difficult job. Make your calls and move on. Dan, you give too much information. It makes you look like you did something wrong. You're trying to prove the other side. Don't do it. You're the ref. You're on the field. You made the call. Move on.
This is funny coming from Stugotz, known liar who loves to give extra details on things so you think he's
And I'm
not
telling you,
lying.
it's got me into trouble. I mean, you need to stop. That's it. Like, just stop trying to prove everything because, Dan, then one lie gets entangled into another lie and then into another lie. And then suddenly you start off trying to tell the truth, but eventually it becomes what it was to begin with, a lie.
So you're saying that what you would prefer is just for them to go touchdown, no touchdown, walk off the field, no explanation. That's what
Yep.
you're arguing on behalf of.
No statements.
That's literally what they did, though.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happened at the game.
I am curious to get a broadcaster's perspective on this because you mentioned that how many times do you see a game end like this in college football? Not often, but you actually see this happen plenty of times in soccer where a result is just totally hinging on a long, drawn-out replay by an official, and you often have no idea what they're going to come back with. Whitty, you're often finding yourself in this position. You're no stranger to it. Are you careful with how you frame things because you don't want to be accused? Because Ware was pretty clearly leaning into you can't overturn the call on the field, and that established a talking point for an entire nation. So I'm curious as to what your approach is when you find yourself in a similar situation.
Yeah, obviously the analysts can feel free to say whatever they want, but I feel like my job is to, one, try and perceive what they're looking at. And because sometimes when you look at VAR decisions in soccer, you can be looking at offside, you can be looking at a foul, you can be looking at a penalty, whatever you're looking at, it could potentially completely swing. And so I am trying to, when I'm in those instances, present every version of events, including the least likely and often the decision. Because sometimes viewers will watch an incident and go, well, how did they come to that call? And I'm doing my best, based off of all the knowledge of the rules that I have, to present what could be any possible outcome. That way, viewers at the very least are not caught off guard by what's going on. But obviously, the analysis is the biggest part of that, especially when it comes from rules experts. Because like you said, I do think the television broadcast goes a long way in determining how people feel. I actually kind of most learned this lesson from when the Miami Hurricanes lost the national championship to Ohio State in 2002, because a legion of fans are still upset about that. And I think a big part of the reason why, beyond obviously your own visual perception of the event, is that pass interference call in that Ohio State national championship. Dan Fouts was the analyst on the game, and when they show the replay, he goes, bad call, bad call, like he is shouting it at the top of his lungs. And I really do think that set the framing for how people perceive that event. So you have to, at the very least, try and present a sober, both sides view of what could possibly happen.
Speaking of not sober, not both sides as a view, Roy, how do you feel just seeing the face of Chris Whittingham as somebody who was poisonously anti-Panthers out of nowhere after being a lifelong South Floridian?
Traitor. You are absolutely a traitor. Wow. And it was the dumbest take I've ever heard, quite frankly.
Wow. The dumbest ever.
Yes, ever.
Really?
That the Panthers trading for Matthew Tkachuk made him hate the Panthers because they were the antithesis of fun and made him become a Rangers fan.
And it came right back to bite him in the ass.
Well, if McDavid did what McDavid was promised he would do,
Yep.
then this would be a different story.
Well,
but
he didn't. Now, did he?
I will
He was
relive
shut
that
down by
Game
Alexander
7 for the
Barkov.
rest of my
Make
life.
Overrated, huh?
There you go.
Yeah.
Just like the billboard said.
Mhm.
Did you ever
Exactly.
put those up?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, we didn't, Billy.
We got billboards up somewhere, didn't we?
No.
I think we did.
Yeah,
No.
we got.
Yeah.
No, I think we did. We got like 5
Yeah.
Greg Cody was right billboards up here locally, I believe.
Yeah.
I'll look into this.
Okay, thank you for all your hard work.
I actually have an image from the weekend. Yesterday, I went on a family day, and I had the privilege, the honor to meet Stan. Whitty, we have a photo right here. If you can see in this photo with my daughter there, I'm pointing
nice.
exactly to the point on the Stanley Cup where
Wow.
it says, "You suck ass." Wow. Right there.
They engraved it.
Really?
Juliet's
They
like,
got that
yeah.
engraved in
Yeah,
the
they got it
trophy?
engraved right there. It says, Chris Whittingham sucks ass.
I don't understand this Stanley Cup where sometimes
Bit
you
wordy.
can touch it, sometimes you can't touch it, and then like there's like guards where they wear gloves, but then you can just go up to it with kids and put your fingers on it. Like, explain the Stanley Cup to me.
It's all who
It's
you
not,
know.
It's not sacred at all. You can do whatever you. If you can eat cereal out of the Stanley Cup, it is not a trophy to be revered or respected.
So this event that I was at yesterday,
What?
it is
What
to
do
me.
you-
Second dumbest
it's
take I've
the
ever
most
heard.
famous of trophies.
Well, there's like
What's the
3 of
matter
them
with
also,
you?
right?
There were at this event, this was the actual one, not the fake one. There were two people from the Hockey Hall of Fame there with the white gloves, making sure that only certain people could touch it. Like there was a representative from the Panthers there. He could do basically whatever he wanted with it because he was a part of the organization that won the Stanley Cup. But if someone else were to try to be as cavalier with the cup, they would be stopped immediately, and they would defer to the member of the organization as to whether or not they can move forward with it. But they are pretty tough with it.
Whittingham, what are you guys trying to do with goalless?
Well, I think the first thing is it's not my job. It's the job of Russell Howard, a professional comedian, but to present a more comedic view on the game. But I think the biggest thing from an actual soccer standpoint is I think cover a tournament that's the biggest club tournament in the world that's not really covered specifically by anything, because the UEFA Champions League for me is the best soccer tournament in the world, and it's mostly covered through the prism of whichever country that media originates from, whether that be England or Spain or France or Italy or Germany. But for me, the Champions League, I think, is a competition that is almost undercovered in a weird way, because it's not covered from a holistic, here's the whole picture of the entire tournament and all the teams in it. So I think from an actual content standpoint, that's what we're trying to do. But obviously, Russell Howard is absolutely brilliant. He's hilarious. And obviously, we're partnered up with Goalless or with Smartless, excuse me. The podcast is Goalless. But Smartless is presenting, one of the funniest content outputs in the world. So I think that's a big part of it. So we're trying to go lighthearted, but we're also trying to cover this tournament properly. So those are the two main goals.
Good to see you, Whittingham. Thank you for stopping through.
Always good to see everybody, despite the fact that everyone appears to hate me.
Yeah,
I love you, Woody.
But that's on you.
I don't know you that well.
They said that you both suck ass and were bitten in the ass. So those are both things that you were accused of during this.
Human centipede type of situation.
We appreciate your time. Lucy has emerged. I don't know where it is that she was, but it
the
now,
game of the weekend.
Pearl Jam.
It now gives us I was at Pearl Jam. Stugotz, what's the point of saying Pearl Jam there? Like what?
I love Pearl Jam.
Don't lash out at me. Don't lash out at me.
You're saying, what's the point of saying Pearl Jam? Why would she have been at Pearl Jam?
Don't lash out at me. She loves Pearl Jam. I knew that. I made the joke right after Mike said what he said. The timing was a little bit off. I apologize. I watched football this weekend.
Lucy, you were at the Alabama-Georgia game, and you were as far from the interception at the end as you could be while still remaining on the field. You had the worst view in the entire
no.
On the field, you were as far away from the game-changing, game-finishing interception as anyone who was on the field. What was your experience like after seeing Georgia go down 28-0?
Well, I was like happy first because I've been kind of anxious about how many people keep telling me that I'm a curse and that I'm bad luck for the home team, and I really want home teams to invite me to their games. But when the game went down 28-0, I started cheering for Georgia. I wanted a competitive game. I, as an Iowa fan, have sat through many games where we have been down 28-0, and it never turns out like that. It was very much like, and we all watched the game, it was a slow burn, and then all of a sudden at once, like, there was never really the vibe around the stadium that, like, oh, this is going to go poorly, things are changing. Everything was great, and then 1 second we all looked around and we're like, what the hell has just happened? Like, it was hard to describe, but genuinely one of the coolest sporting atmospheres I've ever been a part of. It was awesome, and I didn't need to be close to the interception to know it was going to happen.
Why is that? How is it that you knew that was going to happen? Everywhere you go, the home team loses.
I knew it was going to happen because, like, Carson Beck was two completely different quarterbacks in this game. Like, the first half and the second half were completely different, but there was just something about, like, how Alabama's defense did in the first half, like, just the weird vibes of Georgia where, like, if that game had been played in Athens and gone that exact same way, Georgia would have won. But it was in Tuscaloosa. I just had this, like, inkling, like, Carson Beck is going to end this game on a pick, and that's exactly what happened. It was so awesome. I left that game being like, is Georgia better? I don't know. I kind of think so. It was just like, and I was talking to Tony about it this morning. I think the craziest thing is we watched that game. It kicked ass. It was so cool. Those still might not be the two best teams in the SEC.
Right.
Like, it could be Tennessee or Texas that's better. And this, Stugotz, the whole time I thought about you, this proves that the playoff is not going to kill college football. It has never been more alive, and it has never been more well.
Well, that game was such a special game and such a great game, and I understand what you're saying, but in years past, usually Georgia would have a very difficult time coming back from that loss. now they're a lock to make the playoffs. That's all I'm saying. It takes a little bit of the sting away from the regular season game. I'm serious. It does. Like, both teams are going to make the playoffs. They deserve to make the playoffs. And I'm with Lucy. I'm not certain the team, the Georgia team that we saw in the second half, is not the best team in the country.
I believe that if that game had gone into overtime, Georgia would have won. Like, there's not one question in my mind, and the Alabama defense just came up big at the end of the game. But, like, being in Tuscaloosa the day of, which is an awesome place to be, a crazy tailgating scene, like, there was nothing that I was like, wow, the excitement is lessened. Like, it doesn't matter that both Georgia and Alabama have a very, very good shot at making the playoff. Like, everybody really wanted to win. I don't think it, like, even softens the blow a little bit, because if you're Georgia, you can't seem to beat Alabama during the regular season. Like, it's worked out for you one time for Kirby Smart in the last, like, 5-6 years. So, like, they wanted to win really, really bad. I don't think they give a shit right now whether they're a lock for the playoff, because they still have Texas on their schedule and they still have Tennessee on their schedule.
Lucy, I don't believe that your coverage can be, I had an inkling that was going to happen and wasn't surprised at all when it did happen. I'm reporting that I knew it was going to happen.
I texted my friends, tweeted out a screenshot.
There you
I
go.
said, Carson Beck is going to end this game on an interception.
Boom.
I didn't tweet it because I cared more about telling my friends about it. We have a great college football group chat. Then I tweeted it out, proved to everybody I was right.
But then also you're reporting that not a doubt in my mind that Georgia would have won in overtime, which
That's how you do it.
I don't believe that you can do that.
I absolutely believe I can.
Yeah.
But I didn't say I thought the game was going to go to overtime. I said if it did, then Georgia would have won.
No, you said not a doubt in your mind that Georgia would have won in overtime.
I said if it went to overtime. You're leaving out the if.
She knew it wasn't. It's a hypothetical.
Right, but you'd have to have a doubt in your mind because there are two teams playing and the other one can win.
Because she didn't say when it goes to overtime. She said if.
I said
Correct.
if.
Yeah. She
What
texted
did
her
you
friends.
What did you take at Pearl Jam? Like, why are you so out of it? You need to listen.
I don't know how you watch that game and are like, yeah, the college football playoff got it wrong. Because in any other college football season, if this were not an expanded college football playoff and just not expanded conferences like we got this year with these mega conferences, that's probably the biggest game of the college football season by a wide margin. And now it's not even the biggest Alabama football game of the next couple of weeks. It's not the biggest Georgia game of the next couple of weeks. The college football slate, week in and week out. I will say this weekend, it's weak. There's a reason why game day is going to Berkeley.
But the next 2 weeks, you're right.
It's a drug. It's heroin. These matchups, like, count me, I guess, as an outlier opinion. But I think more good games between big-time programs routinely is a good thing. I think if we're at home and we get to see a banger of a game by gigantic programs, I think that's a good thing and that we see more of. I like it. So I don't see where the argument that this whole expansion thing is bad for the sport, because the sport has never been hotter.
Obviously, if you're playing in the SEC and you're one of those top 5 teams, any Saturday, any one of those can beat another one. But don't you guys feel like what has pretty clearly happened here over the last couple of years is that Oklahoma has been left behind by Texas, that Texas is somebody that you look at and maybe they lose, maybe they can lose to one of these, Tennessee looks exceptional and obviously anyone can lose to Alabama and Georgia, but don't you think Texas has separated itself as something that belongs in the SEC where Oklahoma is a second-tier team or program in the SEC?
Yes, sort of. Oklahoma is pretty bad this year. Their offense is genuinely horrific. But I think the thing that we forget is when Texas and Oklahoma play, there are no rules. It doesn't matter who's good. That game is weird, and Oklahoma will always be able to compete with Texas just because there is something weird in the air at Red River.
I don't think that's good analysis either.
Everyone agreed here with me.
No, you're right about
strange game. Dan.
You're right about those two teams always play games that are close, but something strange in the air as analysis is not concrete analysis.
You've never been to the game. I have, and I'm telling you, there's something strange in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Like what? A pollutant?
I think it's like all the funnel cake fumes from the State Fair.
Is your video ready? Can we go to your video from the Alabama-Georgia game? Are you claiming that this is the best atmosphere you have been in this year?
Best tailgating atmosphere I've been to this year.
Wow.
All right, let me see this video.
Next question, please.
Okay.
Tighten up. Tighten up. Let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
Dan, Stu, all the listeners of the show, got one thing to say to you. The Lucy curse is over. It's broken. We're back.
Roll Tide or go Dogs?
Oh, no!
Roll Tide, get out of here! Go!
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
I don't give a piss about nothing but the Tide, baby.
Go Dogs. Go Dogs. Are you nervous about playing Georgia today?
No. We kick the shit out of dogs. What are you talking about? Why would we be scared of the dogs?
Never been scared of a dog.
The Chihuahuas? No.
Scared of a dog? What? What are you talking about? Ain't nothing about a dog. I don't know what a dog is today.
I am a dog.
Roll Tide.
But I ain't no Georgia dog.
Dogs.
So this is the punishment board.
And this is based off of the bucket of death.
If you lose, you got to pay the glizzy straw punishment. That's what I got today. So all my beers have to be drinking out of this today.
Does winning ever get old?
No. Winning? No. Oh, it never gets old.
You always want to win in life, in football games, in basketball games, in gymnastics, in rowing, in track, in life.
And how does it feel to have the last 10 years of actually having a quarterback?
I mean, I love it. It's nice having a dude that can throw. It's really, really nice.
God, I've seen what you've done for others, and I want that for me.
You see what I'm wearing? Go Dogs. My friend goes here. He's making me wear this. Go Dogs. Go Dogs!
Roll Tide, you're wearing a Bama jersey.
How much do you miss Nick Saban?
Don't miss Nick at all. I love Nick.
What?
Do not miss Nick at all. I'm proud of Nick, love Nick. I'm glad he's where he's at. He's in retirement. It's an awesome feeling.
This trip to T-Town was presented by Powerade. It takes more.
Blitz, Bama, Blitz! Are you here?
No, look, I got my hat on, I got my buttons. What do you mean?
She's a liar.
Who do you think my favorite team is?
JMU.
It's not James Madison. I don't know what about me says James Madison University, but all right, well.
I ain't gonna lie, like Alabama, Roll Tide, and all that bullshit. But like, I love Alabama. Like, this is fun. It's fun. You can't be Athens.
It's not Athens.
Be Athens, baby.
This is my first Alabama tailgating experience. I think my big takeaway is that fashion is crazy. How do you feel about Alabama tailgate fashion?
It's crazy, bro. I mean, they go all out. I mean, this is like everyone prepares for this. This is everything.
Yeah, we're the two most underdressed people here right now. How do you feel about Georgia fans barking all the time?
It's gross.
They sound like poodles.
It's weird.
Poodles.
It's kind of weird.
Poodles. They're poodles.
Is there anything else you want to say to the show?
I feel like until Greg Cody dies, Tuesday should be all him. He should be just Greg Cody for Tuesdays. Greg Cody Tuesdays until he passes away.
I'm a big fan. Big fan. I love Dan. Love Stugotz. Big Stugotz guy.
Awesome. Great. He is really a fan. He didn't just name Dan and Stugotz because they're both in the name of the show.
I love Billy.
There we go. Have you ever heard of the Dan Le Batard Show?
Do what?
And Jeremy wanted us to go to UCF, Colorado. He has been tweeting at me for weeks to get me to go to UCF, Colorado instead of Bama, Georgia, which we were told was going to be the game of the year so far. And guess what? It was.
Are you drunk?
This was so awesome. Life is worth living.
No.
College football rules.
Drunk on
Thank
life.
you for letting me get to do this. I feel great. I feel awesome. I don't even care that I was stuck in the airport for like 15 hours. And none of this would be possible without our friends at Game Time who hooked us up with great seats to watch the best game of the year so far. Download the Game Time app and use code Lucy for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Roll Tide.
Stugotz, a couple of basketball stories from the weekend that I thought were interesting. This Karl Anthony Towns trade has not gone through yet to the Knicks, correct? The one that Shams was reporting.
Officially, it has not gone through. Correct.
Julius Randle and what did I call DiVincenzo? Did I call
the
him
Italian kid from Ohio?
The Italian DiVincenzo. That is a trade that makes the Knicks immediately better and is confusing to me. Even though I understand from the perspective of the Timberwolves, it's confusing to me that you would make your team worse to save money when you just had what might be considered the best Timberwolves team we've ever seen. And when Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert played together last year, that team was great.
Right.
And you've made yourself worse. Like, that's not up for debate. Karl Anthony Towns, whether you like him or not, or whether you think he's worthy of being a number one option, he's clearly the best player in this trade. And the Knicks get better by acquiring him, and the Timberwolves make worse by being cheap and trying to stay under the luxury tax. Perhaps the best T-Wolves team I have ever seen.
Right. It's interesting because Knicks fans, while getting the better player, while improving the team and the roster, they fell in love with last year's team. And so there are some Knicks fans who are upset that Dante DiVincenzo, who's from Delaware, by the way, he's not from Italy, he's not from Ohio, he's just from Delaware. I have found the reaction to this to be very, very funny because New York falls in love with guys who overachieve. And that's what the Knicks team did last year. And Knicks fans are upset that they broke up that team. They wanted to see him run it back with a healthy Julius Randle, which is absurd to me. Because the Knicks, they got a superstar. They got a former number one pick in the NBA draft who averages like 25. He's a double-double with a couple of blocks and hits threes.
I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think
it's a major upgrade for the Knicks, though.
I'm splitting hairs with you. I don't know that he's a superstar as a star, but he is the best.
He will be now.
He's the best player in this trade, and I'm just confused if you're the Timberwolves why you would do that to your fan base that overtly, being cheap when you have finally put together something that is special. The Timberwolves in their entire existence have only had a run with Kevin Garnett teams. Those are the best they've ever had, and it was a long time ago. And so to watch, I was bothered on behalf of Minnesota fans that they would make that trade that way and that they would get so little for him. The contract is onerous. I guess that is why they got so little for him, but that seems like very little to get for someone who I don't think is a superstar or a star, but he is an all-star. He's like, I don't think we haven't seen him be a number one, but
he's not a number one, but he doesn't have to be a number one in New York because Jalen Brunson is the number one. I mean, I don't know either, Dan. I was pleasantly surprised. I had no expectation of getting Karl Anthony Towns. I'm happy that we did.
I think the Knicks are a good deal better with him and Bridges. Like, I know you can fall in love with the Josh Harts of the world and the Hartensteins. Like, that happens a lot to fan bases. You fall in love with the lovable little guys, but I mean, Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns are a major talent upgrade over what it is that they were putting out there last year. That was an overachieving basketball team last year that had hit its ceiling. They were not going to beat the Celtics that way.
No, they weren't. But you could say maybe the Timberwolves hit their ceiling with that team. They went to the Western Conference Finals last year.
But make it better. But get better around those two guys. It's hard to get a 1 and a 2 that are that strong that can win you 60 games in a basketball season. Like, it's the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves, weren't they the 1 seed last year?
I believe they were, Dan, yeah.
And they end up losing because Dallas upsets them, but it was a young team. Like, you've got to give a team like that a little bit of time to mature. Karl Anthony Towns is still a young player.
Yes. It's interesting also because Dante DiVincenzo was reportedly upset with a reduced role this year.
Because they're going to play Bridges.
Well, because they got Bridges, which is so funny because that's what happens to these guys and their ego when they do it in the Mecca, when they do it in New York. DiVincenzo, he gave Knicks fans one of the all-time great seasons. He did. Him along with Jalen Brunson, the rest of the guys from Villanova. It was an amazing season. The bar has been set so low that last year almost felt like a championship to Knicks fans because we were so deep into the season. And now the guy he thinks he's a superstar. Dante DiVincenzo was not a superstar, and he's upset at a reduced role. And so the Knicks said, okay, enjoy your reduced role in Minnesota. Have fun with that. I mean, this is great. We're a better team today.
The other basketball story that I thought was also a little bit weird. Jeff Passan is considered a front-runner, according to The Athletic, to replace Woj. Shams is also considered a favorite. That would make more sense. Adam Schefter briefly dallied with trying to be a basketball insider and played around with it, but doesn't have the kind of sources that you need to be a basketball insider.
No.
I love Jeff Passan as a person, as a writer, and as a reporter, but you have to build sources to have that kind of job over 30 and 20 years in a sport.
Yes.
I don't know how Jeff Passan would even do that job if you don't have basketball sources.
Let's correct ourselves before the buzzards come in. They're already here. The T-Wolves were the 3rd seed in the West last year. It was Oklahoma City, then Denver.
Okay.
They were the 3
No,
seed.
thank you. But I know the last week of the season
Right.
they were playing for the one. They were playing for the 1 seed.
I know Passan and Woj are very close. I don't know if Woj always imagined, hey, if I step down, this thing will go to Jeff Passan. I don't know how that works because how is Passan going to gain all those relationships that Woj gained over 4 decades of or 3 decades of doing this?
You're saying it's a passing of the torch?
I think so, yes.
Oh, come on.
Again?
He can't control that button. We can't allow him to control that button.
Passing of the contacts.